I'm indeed very happy to be here with you. But before I start, I'm not sure how much you know about me, because when I'm talking to you, you're now become a part of my family, a part of the Khimji Ramdas family. Okay, we are a family business. We have been in business in Oman for maybe 150 years, 130 years, we don't know. But in 1870, we established a business. You know, where did the Khimji family come from? The Khimji family came originally from India. And the bilad that they had was Kutch. Kutch is on the coast, on the western coast of India. And it's in a place, in a state called Gujarat. What is so special about Gujarat? Or what is so special about Kutch? Kutch is very dry. There's no mai, there's no vegetation, agriculture is minimal. So the people of Kutch are very, like the Omanis, very steady. They always look at something outside to make their money. So my great-great-grandfather, Mr. Ramdas, was a captain of the dhow. And he decided to sail, and they used to call India to Africa was a spice route. Why? Because India used to export rice, sugar, coffee, etc. And on the way to Africa, they used to go along the coast. Earlier, ships never went straight. They did the coastal route. And in Kutch, there is a little town called Mandvi, Mandvi. And it is exactly the same latitude as Kalhat. So Kalhat, Sur and Mandvi are on the same line. And if you go straight east from Kalhat, you hit Mandvi. And if you go straight west from Mandvi, you hit Kalhat. But that was not the way the ships moved. The ships moved along the coast. So they did Mandvi, the next stop was Karachi, the next stop was Gwadar, the next stop was Sur. Then they went up to Muscat, Sohar, or they went down to Salala. Aden was the so-called vibrant port at that time. And then they went down to Zanzibar, Mombasa, all the way and back. And from Africa, they would take the spices, cardamom, cloves, timber. The wood for our ships, our dhows and sur, was from Africa. So at some point in time, Mr. Ramdas stopped in Sur, and he realized that the people of Sur, what would we take from Oman? Dates, bosar, dry limes, and a little bit of water, fuel, whatever he could get. No fuel at that time. And similarly, he would bring rice, sugar, and he became friendly with the traders of Sur. And then he became friendly with the traders of Muscat, and then Sohar. And he realized that actually it's a good place to live. Not Zanzibar, not Yemen, Aden, but Oman. And he said the Omani people welcomed him at that time, and he settled down. And when he opened an office in I don't know whether it was in Sur first or whether it was in Muscat, but they say the Khimji families belong to Sur. So I would imagine he came to Sur first, because Sur is the first point that you can link at that time. So we settled down and established a company. He died very early, and he had only one son, Mr. Khimji. He had no other brothers or sisters. And Mr. Khimji started the business somewhere in 1880, so from his father. He had 5 children, 5 boys, and 1 daughter. My grandfather, Mr. Gokuldas, was the eldest. He was born in Muscat in 1901. Okay? And the youngest brother of the 5 brothers, Mr. Mathradas, was born in 1916 or 1917. The difference was 16 years between the two of them. But also in 1917, 1918, Mr. Khimji died when Mr. Gokul Das was only 17 years old, 16 years old. And he had and also, if you remember, in the world, there were two recessions, downturns in the economy globally. After the First World War, which was 1913, 1915, and then again after the Second World War, because people spent a lot of money on the wars and there was no more money left. Why was Muscat important before 1940? Muscat was important because when the British ships used to go to India, because they controlled India, when they came to India, they used to stop. They used to go along coastal. There were no machines. They were going by the sails, by the wind. So Muscat was very important because they used to stop in Muscat for water, for refreshments. And by the way, they used to trade a little bit in Muscat as well, and go on. Around the 1920s, 1930s, the engines came in. And when the machines came in, they did not need to stop in Muscat anymore, and they went straight through. That's when the trade and Muscat importance of Oman went down slowly. So this was a historical time. So again, in 1916 to 1920 was a very low period. Also when Mr. Gokul Das, very young, took over from his father. But he was very entrepreneurial, yani Banyan. They were the true Banyan. He was looked for anything to do business. Number two, he also had fantastic interpersonal relationship. He kept relationship with all the sheikhs in the wilayas because he used to buy the basar from them. And in return, he would sell them rice, shakkar, coffee, and so on. And he became very friendly with them. And it was a relationship that kept the business going. You know, so sometimes we say, why do we need relationships? If my product is good, it will sell. No. Sometimes it's the relationship, the trust, the friendship that you build between people to people is more important than the product itself that you're selling. So it's something that we need to understand, is that we need to get the trust and the relationship going with our customers all the time. And this is what Mr. Gokul Das was number one at. Not only did he build the relationship with the people, but he became very friendly with His Majesty Sayyid Said, Allah Rahmu. And they were the same age. Sayyid Said, after the 40s, 50s, he lived in Salalah because of the problems in Dhofar. And my grandfather would travel to see him every month on the plane, on a little Panka plane, on a Dakota belonging to the Royal Air Force. And the Panka plane would go from Beit al-Falaj in Rui, stop in Masira, refuel in Masira, Allah Salalah. And every month he would go there. And they became very good friends. And why was he friendly? Because Mr. Gokul Das only went to school until class 9, my grandfather. But after that, he learned from a teacher how to write English and how to read English. So he never learned English in school, but he learned it from a tuition teacher. And with this, he could communicate. And because he had picked up Arabic from the sheikhs and his friends from the date trade, he was able to communicate and build a very, very good relationship with Sayyid Said. And so the matter went on. Then came the Second World War. And in the Second World War, Oman was a very important position because it opened up to the Arabian Sea. It was a connection between Africa and India. So today, the same relevance, why Dokum, why Sohar, why are we doing Salalah? We are the gateway to the Middle East and also the connection between India and Africa. So we need to realize, this was realized even then. But Oman was a strategic important position for the Allied forces, the West against the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians in the war of the Second World War. And Oman became very, very important. At that time, Sayyid Said said, and my grandfather Gokul Das was called Mamu. He said, Mamu, the British will be coming the other people will be coming, but they will need a lot of help. They will need money, and they will need food, and they will need clothing, they will need huts, they will need storage. And that time there were no trucks and things. You will need camels, they will need donkeys to transport their goods. My grandfather became the agent of the Allied forces during the Second World War. And all the losses that he had from the First World War till 1935, during those 7 years or 8 years until 1943, he was able to clean up. And he was able to pay off. So sometimes they say when there is a downturn, there is an opportunity. And because of the relationship and because of the good person that he was, and he was trusted, trust and relationship again, he was able to get that contract, and he became very close to the Allied forces, to the British. And then the British stayed. Then again, after the Second World War, the downturn. But in the 1950s late, the Americans came to say maybe there is oil. And oil was a new energy. And do you know where they first landed when they came to Oman to find oil? Duqm. What was there in Duqm? Nothing. But location. When they came out from Aden, the location in Duqm into the Oman was the best. Khimji opened its office in 1950s, or a branch in Duqm in those days. So you imagine how far back we have things. And we had a little hut, yani Mittal Barasti. And we operated out of that, supporting the oil companies to come in. Anyway, things moved on. We did well. And then, of course, 1970. His Majesty came, Sultan Qaboos. And I think this is the third transition. So the first one was during the First World War. Before the engines of the ships, Oman was very prominent. You know, another very, very important reason why Oman was very good in trade in the early, from 1850 to 1920, 23, slave trade. Oman was the main hub for, and let's not call them slaves, let's call them workers. They were workers who came from Africa and was transported to the upper part of the Arabian Peninsula. So Oman was the first point from where this thing happened. And it's the Omani ship owners, the dhow merchants, who carried them and traded them. Of course, we were also the first country to sign the anti-slave treaty. So when that happened, again the business went down. You know, haram, but that is the way it was then. It was then accepted. Today we say haram. But Oman played a very important role, but also was one of the first countries to say, haram, we're not going to do this. And human values were, even Said at that time said, khalas, we will sign it. And we signed it. So that was one reason. The slave trade went down, the trade with Africa went down, the trade with the Upper Middle East went down. The second uprising, the Second World War, Oman again did well. We were the location, and we went on. Third, 1970. Sultan Qaboos came on, God bless him. We had oil find, and it was a new vision. And you know, they say that sometimes after some time, your thinking stops, that you stop thinking after some time. If you're doing the same thing every day, if you face the same problems every day, you need to reinvent yourself. So you need to think outside. You need to think, you need to move around. You cannot be in the same position for more than X number of years. And I think when we got His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, he had new thinking. He had been back from England. He had seen what development was after the war in Europe, in etc. And he had served in Germany. He had served in UK. He had learned the culture of what good building practices were. And when he came back in 1970, when he came on throne, the first thing he said is what? Education, education, education. And even if it means educating a child underneath a tree, we shall do that. I think this made us different from our neighbors. If you look at today, our neighborhood, whether it's UAE, Upper Gulf, Qatar, etc., the thing that stands out is that our education system in 1970 to 1980 was very good for that time. I think today our education system is very irrelevant. We still have the same way of teaching what we did in 1970. And hopefully we will change this. And I think there is efforts being made to change it. But anyway, that's besides the point. So I think going forward, we saw the change. What did Khimji do in 1970? What did we do? How big were we up to 1970? In 1970, my grandfather was still there. So he was 69 years old. But for him it was a shock, because Said was his best friend, like a brother. And they were like two brothers who got along together, who fought together, who disagreed on various principles, and so on and so forth. Qaboos came, he was very happy. And he had seen young Sultan Qaboos in his laps, in his pocket, in his laps. And he had seen him grow in Salalah. He also went with him to London on one of his trips. He's very happy. At the same time, there was also this talk going on. Mamu, Sheikh, when are you leaving now? Your friend is gone, now you have to go. And he was very upset. He said, no, I can't. Then he said, it's time. Now he was offered Omani nationality, he was offered the thing. He said, no, I am a proud Indian, I want to go back to my bilad. I have never done anything for my bilad. My bilad is very poor, there's no water, there's no sanitation, there's no education. But in 1955 or something like that, you know what he did for his bilad in Mandvi? He started a girls' school. School only for girls. The school is now close to 65, 70 years old. It's still there. And what was it called? Khimji Ramdas Girls' School. Named after his father and grandfather. But he said, I want to start a girls' school. And the local Maharaja, the Sultan, the king of Mandvi, of the Kutch area, he said, okay, you can take my city palace as the school, but you fund everything else. He said, khalas, I will take care of it. So the Maharaja gave the school at 1 rupee per year rent. At 1 rupee at that time, today 1 rupee is nothing. So he started that, and it was a very good school. So he said, I want to go back in 1970, 71, and I want to spend more time with the school. How can you stop him? My father was only 35 years old. My uncle was only 34 years old. He said, okay. He said, so he went to say bye to Sultan Qaboos, saying that, Asalama, I'm going back to India. He said, what? For what? He said, no, I want to go and do something for him. He said, this is your bilad. Today, Oman needs schools more than anywhere else. So before he went, he opened the first school in Jalan. 2 classrooms he built and a school, and he gave it in 1970, 71. So he gave 2 classroom school in Jalan. He said, no, I also want to build a hospital. And Sultan Qaboos told him, no, but Oman needs a hospital as well. So he built a clinic in Ibra in 1970 as a going away, this is my thing for the people. And he gave the ambulance, a first ambulance that came on a dhow from India. And what is an ambulance in those days? It was like a tin cup on 4 wheels, yes, with a stretcher that can go in. So that was the first CSR we did, the people contact that we did. And His Majesty said, okay, I'll let you go, but provided you come back and see me every year. He was very happy. He said, that's it. The fact that I belong to you and to Oman, for me this is more than enough. But it's also time that I retire. You need fresh minds. You have come in. I will leave everything to my children. So Mr. Kanak, my father, my uncle Ajit, Anil and Ajay became the new generation of Khimjis that came in. And what were we doing at that time in 1970? Rice, sugar, coffee beans. We had a general store. At that time, we had Rolex. And Rolex, he went to Aden one day. He used to go to Aden every few months because the main bulk you can buy from Aden. Aden was big trading post. So one day Sultan Said asked him, Mamu, you're going to Aden? He wrote down on a piece of paper, there is this watch brand called Rolex. Can you bring me? He said, what? He said, Rolex. Can you bring this 3 watches for me? So he wrote down, he went there, he bought the 3 Rolexes, and he saw 2 more Rolexes. He said, I'll buy 2 more for my daughter-in-law. And he brought them the 2 Rolexes. And he said, by the way, do you have the contact address in Switzerland for Rolex? I will write to him to say if I can represent him. This is how it started. That you know, you understand on recommendation, and you write and you build a relationship. And he built a relationship with Rolex. And today, for more than 60 years, we've been friends and business partners of Rolex. We are small. We are not like Dubai. We're not like these other places. But the relationship goes on. The same thing with Philip Morris Marlboro. At that time, cigarette smoking was like fashion. You know, you wear a komma, it's fashion. You wear a red komma, it's fashion. Marlboro, you have a cigarette in your hand, it's fashion. So it was not haram as you think. And we started, I mean, you know, it was there. Now some people today think, oh, you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't do it. But we go on. I mean, you know, there are things that maybe we should not sell shakkar, it's bad for the health. Maybe we should not sell this thing, but we have to do it, we have to do it. But we built relationships with them, with these companies, and the same companies are still our partners. I can't think of one company that my grandfather had in the 1960s and 70s that we have not carried on relationship even today. So it's about relationship. So when you are doing relationship, the relationship is not only with your customer, but also with your supplier, with your people, with the people. So what I'm saying that this is something that we learned and we imbibed. So we had a general store, and a dukan, and in that dukan you sold fishing rods, the fishing line, we sold Rolex, we sold batteries, Energizer, Everready, we sold watches, we sold t-shirts from Lacoste, we sold, I mean, it was a general store. The dukan was one, there was no supermarket. And the food was only sold in Matra. The food was not, there was no such thing as supermarket. And there were no real bakalas also. You had a chai wala, and you had a marmari wala, and you had the barber, and you had the tailor. Bas. That's it. Life was simple. Anyway, so we moved on, and then from there on we started saying, no, we must have a building material division. Oh, we must start a construction. Construction was there. Do you know the southernmost border we have is with Yemen? And the first fort that was built in 61 on the Yemen border was where? Habrut. Who built that fort? Khimji Ramdas. My father went on a Bedford truck. Tarif Bedford? Bedford truck. Have you heard of the name Bedford truck? This is before Nissan and before Toyota Hilux. There was an old, like Mitchell Land Rover. Land Rover was for cars and Bedford was for trucks. Took the Bedford truck and traveled 150, 200 kilometers until the border from Salalah, and he lived there. And he stayed there with the people, with 10 people, and they said, be careful, there will be mines blasting, there will be gunfire from Yemen, be careful, because it was the height of the war. The rebellion was starting, but we built the fort. So we had a contribution towards that. We built the extension to the Beit al-Falaj airport. We built the little sheds that were there inside the mountains to keep the ammunition at those days. We also did a lot of work in Nizwa, in the camp in Nizwa, the camp in Al-Gharaf in Salalah. We did a lot of work in Sohar at the camp over there. So that's how started the construction. As a contract to the MOD, you were only supplying that time rice and dal and wheat and other things. And by the way, he went there and he said, is there something else? Yes, we want to build this thing. Can you bring some people? So we started doing a little work and became a construction company. So this is how life went on. And what does it say? It says that you're an entrepreneurial mind. You never miss an opportunity. You're always thinking about what next you can do Just because you are a salesman or you're selling only this doesn't mean you only sell this. You look at what the customer you can provide. So always keep thinking, always keep inventing. You cannot be selling the same thing again and again because somebody else will sell it at a cheaper price with a better product. You have to move on. You have to think outside. You have to think and invent, how can I serve this customer? How can I serve PDO? How can I serve MOD? We've been doing just that. And this is what Khimji Ramdas is. It's about trust. When we say, yes, we can do it, we do it. We keep the margins marginal, and we don't worry about the cost afterwards. It's all about delivering on time, the exact same product, and never, if you are having an issue with the product, please say to the customer that we have an issue, be honest. So we were trusted, we cared for the customer and our suppliers and our people. So apart from the supplier, apart from the customer, who according to us is God, okay, we think they are our life, they are our ultimate. Whatever, even if they are wrong, we say they are right, and we have to accommodate that. They are like a little children, when they cry, yeah, baba, we'll give it to you, don't worry. Even if you don't, but you have to look after them, they are children. So you have to look after your customers. But the third most important element on people is our staff. We're very fortunate that over the last 150 years in Oman, a lot of the staff that we've had over years, second generation, third generation, so the grandfather worked for Khimji, the father worked for Khimji, and now the son is working for Khimji. Or we were trading with the father, and now they said that please go and take my son, he wants to work, I want him to work with Khimji. We were trusted. We became friends, we became family, we became an extended member of their inner circle. And this is very important, that we are trusted. And why should we be trusted? Because we become virtually like a partner, we become like a family to our customers. And if they don't trust us, how do we know what they really want? They don't share with us, they're keeping out us like that. It doesn't help. If they can share with us what their budget is, then we can find a product or a solution within their budget. But if we don't know, if they want to have a budget of say 200 riyals and we try to sell them a 5,000 riyal Rolex, it doesn't work. But if we have a relationship, they will tell us what is the budget, how they want to create it, and then we create and we package a service based on what they want. This is open, and we keep an open book. So this is how we work, and this is how we trade with them. We moved on from 1970, and we had various divisions: building material, construction, general store. So it went on, and we had division managers in each. We never went into oil and gas. Why? I think my father or my uncles did not understand engineering or oil and gas. But they said, you did the construction. I said, in the old days, construction was tabuk, and you put a sheet, you cut some wood, you bring in some masons from Kutch, from Bilad Kutch, and they will build, they will take care of. It was simple. And then, of course, you hired an engineer, then you hired a foreman, and then you hired an engineer, then chief engineers, etc., etc. But in oil and gas, I don't know why. But do you know that who was the first person to bring Shell to Oman? Khimjis were the worst sponsors of Shell. All the Shell fueling stations from Lewa, Shanas, Illa Sur, Salala, belonging to Khimjis. And then what we did the first franchise. Tara franchise, you understand franchise? The one in Hale, we franchised to a local sheikh. So we would do the delivery of the fuel, but he would run the fuel pump. Similarly in Salala, similarly in Samail, similarly in Nazwa. But we did the logistics. So what is the new buzzword in Oman? Logistics, transport, location. We were doing that even then. So we were Shell partners until 1972, when the government said no, Shell does not need a partner. Shell will be by itself. Shell will be partners of PDO. So Shell became the partner of PDO when PDO was formed. And that's when we parted ways. But we were the original sponsors and the people who brought Shell to Oman. We were also very fortunate that we worked with a lot of large companies in the early days in Oman, and we learned. But neither my father, nor my uncle, nor my other uncle, and nor my third uncle really went past university. So we had limited, they were always a little dragged back. Education is something that the Khimji family never really pursued. We were only busy with our making trade, tajar. So my father, at the age of 21, in 1957, he was sent to India to study, but after school, or I think Thanawiyah, he came back. He worked for 6 months in India, and he came back to Oman. In 6 months, my grandfather put him in the Bakhar in Matra. So he was a warehouse keeper, and he would get 2 stones, which mean 2 gunia for rice, and he would trade that, and he would make sure and keep his thing. After 6 months or 8 months being a Bakhar keeper, my grandfather said, "Oh, our guy Ansur is gone." So he put him on a dhow with 1 cook, 1 kerosene fridge. Thought of kerosene fridge? What a fridge is today. So the fridge in the old days was no electricity in Sur. So they used to run with kerosene. So you put kerosene inside, you think of, and then you boop, 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 and the compressor in the back of the fridge will go, and the coolant will move around, and the fridge will cool. He took that fridge on a dhow with 1 cook, and he stayed. You know, the next time he saw Muscat, 1960. For 3 years, he was left in Sur. Imagine. But in Sur, Khimjis were part of the first public-private partnership. Thought of public-private partnership? When you do electricity today, electricity is run by a private company, the government buys it, and they're co-partners in running the electricity. So it's called the public-private partnership. The first where the government says, even the utilities are. So what was the first public-private partnership in Sur? The water supply to Sur. So Sultan Said said, "Mamu," to my grandfather in the 1950s, "Mamu, I have a farm in Sur, and the Sur people do not have fresh water, but my farm has fresh water. If you lay the pipelines to the town of Sur, I will give you money for this, for the amount of water that you pump, but you and I will be partners, because it is my water and your pipeline." So that started the first PPP project in Oman between Khimji and Said. It was his personal investment. It was not the state investment. It was only in 1992 or 93 that we gave back the farm to Diwan. Until then, 92, 93, the farm stayed with us, with Khimji. It was an old project. So that's how it's entrepreneurship. It's okay, we can also do piping, we can also do plumbing, we can also do things. And we had 1 Land Rover car. So my father ran that 1957 to 1960. After 3 years, he said, "Come on, I need to see something. I need to go somewhere." And he could not tell his father, "I want to come back." So he wrote a letter to his mother. What did he write in the letter? "I am 23 years old, I want to get married." So the mother said, "Okay." The father called him in after a few months, so he sat on a dhow, came back to Muscat. So he said, "No, he must go to that boarding school." My grandfather said, "No way will I send my Banyan son to a boarding school. Haram. He has to stay at home." So I stayed. He bought a small flat. I had an uncle and aunt in Mumbai, and I studied Mumbai. So I studied no Arabic. I studied English. Now, what is it at that time? At that time, everybody wanted to study English, because Oman was kind of helped by the English people, and the English people were very powerful, and after the Second World War, and the products were coming from England, they said, no, somebody should speak English in our family, he should learn English. So I was sent to an English school in Mumbai. stayed with my uncle and aunt. I stayed there for 10 years. When I came here, they said, oh, he must go to Europe to high school. So I was sent away to Switzerland. When I finished Switzerland, oh, he must go to university in UK. And I did engineering. So I'm a construction engineer. And I did not do a graduate degree. I did a HND. Thought of HND? Higher National Diploma. So I'm a diploma. So those of you who are diplomas, good people. But I did a combined, what do you call a sandwich diploma, where you do 2 years of diploma in construction engineering, and then you do 1 year of work, and then you come back and do your final year when you get the diploma. In 1983 in UK was a big recession. I mean, strikes, people were not working, there were huge, 15% of UK was out of jobs, 15%. And you know what is the total people out of job in Oman today as a percentage? How many registered job seekers do we have at PAMAP, Public Authority for Manpower Registration, PAMAR? Less than 60,000. Now we think in Oman, oh, 60,000. As a percentage of the population, it's less than 2.5%. But as a percentage of the working population, yani age group of working above 18 and below 60, it's nearly 7%. So I was in UK and I couldn't find a job. So I came back to Oman. And for 1 year, I worked with the police in the Ashghal, in the projects and maintenance department. And it was probably the best learning ever in my life. Was that 1 year I got zero salary, zero. Okay, I had a letter said that yes, he is a trainee with Ashghal, but I traveled from Khatm Billah illa Tamrain. I went and saw Hafid, I saw Wadi Jizi, I saw Wadi Aswad, I saw Khatm Billah, Ibra, Ibri, you name it, and I went to those locations. I did the border. We built recreation centers, we built camel shelters, we built dog shelters, we designed, we did everything. And that was probably the best learning I've ever had in my life. And the best friends, my first Omani friends I made is when I was working there. We were 4 Omanis in 30 people working in Ashghal in the Royal Man Police, only 4 Omanis at that time. Dr. Salim Rasbi, who was a structural engineer, he is now the sponsor of W.S. Atkins, the best consultancy firm in Oman. He then went on to become professor in Sultan Qaboos, Jamaat Sultan Qaboos. He came back again to police, and now he retired. He runs Gulf Engineering Design Office and the sponsor of Atkins. Adil Hamdan, Allah Rahmu, he died, but he was in Kalhat when they built the LNG terminal. He was the chief engineer there. He and I were working together. And Farid Mohammed, do you know Farid Mohammed is the karate instructor and works for PDO and is an engineer as well. He runs a karate class in Khuair. So we were 4 friends and we were 4 Omanis, and we started from the bottom and we worked our way up. Fantastic experience. And then I came back, I worked. And I came back in 85. And what happened in 85? Do you remember? None of you were there, I imagine. But in 85, the oil prices was at $43. In 6 months, it came down to $8. So if you thought that we had a crisis in 2014, 2015, when the oil price came down from $90 to $25, no, we had it worse in 85. Khimji Ramdas in 85 had 3,000 construction workers, 3,000. 1,000 in Fahood, 1,000 in Muscat, and 1,000 in Tamrain. In 1 year, we went down to 300. So my first job when I joined Khimji Ramdas was to downsize, was to bring down the construction division, because we just finished the jobs and there was no jobs. The government was virtually bankrupt. And I said, I can't work like that. We have to work on. So just because you're an engineer doesn't mean that you can only do construction. You have to move on. You have to learn. And I started working in our consumer products. I started working in our building materials. I started visiting defense. I started visiting our transport. And we just started our shipping at that time. I started learning how to do shipping. I could not sit and say, I'm sorry, there is no work, I'll go home. No. Learning is a lifetime occupation. You must learn from the day you're born to the day you die. You cannot stop learning. The day you stop learning, I think the day I stop reading and the day I stop earning more, I will collapse. I'm 100%. You cannot stop me from reading. I need to read, even if it's the newspaper or even if it's a book or about certain aspects of things. You cannot stop learning. Just because you're an engineer or a lawyer or a thing, doesn't mean that you don't need to know about the other thing. You have to be multi-talented, multifaceted. And learning is, according to me, the biggest asset, the biggest attribute that you can have, apart from attitude. So, learning and attitude. So I moved on and I went and worked for Procter & Gamble. Thought of Procter & Gamble? Procter & Gamble is the company that manufactures Bamber, Always, Tide, Sabun, Camay, Gillette. It's the company. And we were, Khimji Ramdas are the agents for Procter & Gamble. So I went and worked for them in Bristol, in UK. And you know what I started off as? From an engineer to a salesman. So they gave me a little shanta, and inside was Tide, Pamper, sample, and one sample of Head and Shoulders shampoo. And I went from small Bakara in the old interior of UK. My daily driving was about 150 miles, yani 250 kilometers daily. And you did 9 or 10 calls a day because the distance between each one was so far. But what it taught me was that just because you're an engineer doesn't mean that you're the boss or you know everything, or that how can I do that? Selling something to anyone is probably the most difficult thing you can do. Just because you have the best product doesn't mean that you can sell. No, it's a combination of your way you present yourself. The price is right. Does that guy need this, or you're just selling him because you want to sell? It's a combination, it's a science. And the sales is a science. And unless you don't understand the sales, unless you don't understand the customer, it's never going to work. And I came down from my head in the sky on the ground. And those 6 months, according to me, were again my second best learning period in my life. Not my school, not my university, or not my high school, or not my university, but my 1 year with the police and 6 months in the UK. And I came back a much more stable, grounded person. I appreciated people better. I understood the customer better. And this is how we work. And then I worked from one area to another area to another area. And then by then, in the 90s, we had nearly 13 divisions and 2,000 people in Khimji Ramdas. But we never grew the construction division. We kept the construction division small. And we grew. So today, I would say family members, you've become the new family of Khimji. And I will always refer to you as that welcome to the family, because we are a family of taqriban 5,000 people now, like a little kabila, but you are now part of this kabila. And there are a few things that that really matter to us, and we really appreciate from people that come and work with us. And I'll probably share with you, I told you about care, that we must care for the people that we serve, so our customer, our colleagues, and our suppliers. This is the number one you will see in all Khimji Ramdas advertisement. It's about care and care and care. It's looking after. Whether it's your child, your mother, your brother, your sister, your wife, and then your customers, etc. Its number one thing is about care. If you don't look after them, they don't care about you. Okay, so you will never be successful if you don't care for your customer. This is number one. Number two, and I sometimes feel, I don't know which one is more important, trust. You know what is trust? Do you understand trust? I trust you with my money, I trust you with my family, I trust you with my business. But when the customer trusts you, it says, listen, Pankaj, you sure you will supply me this on this date? Because I have to supply to my customer. When you say yes, you do. It doesn't matter whether it's day, night, morning, afternoon. You must deliver what you say and what you promise. That is when you earn trust. By the way, no money can buy you trust. You may be the richest man in the world, but if you don't have the trust, haram. So I think, I don't know whether care is better or trust is better, but I think both of them together makes you the number one company that you are. Another thing is ethics. Now this I don't have to teach. We in Oman are very ethical. Ethical means we respect each other. We do not lie. There is no wasta by paying money and getting business. We do not do that. Okay, we have very ethical practices, and we treat people like brothers and sisters. We do not treat people like they are my employee. No. So there are certain business ethics and certain business rules that we must follow. It's about human values, care, because what I will treat you like, you will treat your children and your family. And it's important that what you learn from the family is what we have in the family here in Khimji Ramdas as well. So good behavior, timely behavior, trust, care, it's all part of the ethics thing. In the early days, before 20, 30 years, 40 years, in the early Muscat, it was all about hard work. It was not about education and mukh. You work hard, you will get a job. Along with hard work is teamwork. That you need to work together. There is no single, there's only not one finger. It's not about me, I, ana. It's nahnu. It's we. We work together. We do the business. We supply this. We will serve you. It's not about I. There is no I when you're working in an organization like KR. We always work together. Learn to work together. It's not about, oh, if I work with him, then he will get the credit and I will not get the credit. This is nonsense. We don't believe in this. Please. Please learn to work together. Learn teamwork. And along with teamwork comes relationships. Build relationships wherever you go, whether it is with your boss, with your junior, with your colleague, with your customer, with your supplier. The more relationships you build, the more friends you make, the better life will be for you. The more happier you will be, the more pass on you'll be there with your family. It's very important. And all this thing boils down to what? How you manage people. Today you will be young executives, you will become unit managers, you'll become assistant managers, you'll become division managers. When you become a manager, you know what you're managing? It's not the tijar, it's not the business that you're managing. When you become a manager, you're managing people. If you don't know how to look after your people, if you don't know how to make relationships at this level, you will never be a good manager because you won't know how to look after your juniors. Okay, so if you don't understand people, you will never be able to manage them either. You will never be a leader. Okay, so on your way, you are on the way to become a leader in 5 to 10 years' time. You will be the future leaders of this organization if you care to stay with us. And if you do not learn to manage people, you will never be good leaders because leadership is all about managing people. Products and the knowledge. Learning about the product that you're working with, learning about the service that you're providing. Keep on learning, keep on looking at it, keep on feeling it, keep on understanding. You must know the product better than the customer. Okay, so if you're working with Rolex, you should know why this Rolex is working like this. If you're working with Pizza Hut, you should know how Pizza Hut is made. If you don't know that, how will you be able to sell it to the customer? Or how will you be able to manage the organization? Haram. And again, in order to keep moving in the organization, I'm sure you're not here to be only executives. I'm here you are here that in the next 2 to 3 years you will grow to be unit managers, assistant managers. Never stop learning. Never stop learning. Whether it's from your friend, family, colleague, boss, subordinate. It's one thing that will keep you going, because the moment your mind stops, your life will stop. Thank you very much for being a part of my family. You are now our family. We are family. So feel free to come. I hope that you will enjoy your time in Khimji Ramdas, an organization which has an old heritage, an old history. But we hope that we will build the new history of Khimji Ramdas together. You will be the new Khimji Ramdas, and you will be the faces of Khimji Ramdas going forward. We need in Oman that the Omanis work. It have nothing against the expatriates, by the way, over here. But I want that we will run our own businesses. We will run our own country. We will manage our destiny. Where Oman wants to go next, we should control it. And I want that you will be my next leaders going forward. I made the mistake of not learning Arabic, and I'm sorry about that. But I made sure that, like my parents said that they want my children to learn English, I said to myself that I want my children to learn Arabic. And I sent all my 3 children to an Omani school, and they all speak Arabic. And I have a daughter who's a lawyer, and she's a graduate of Sultan School. My second daughter is also a graduate of Sultan School, and she also went 15 days after and did Thanawi Amma, the normal exam, with her friends. And she's an urban planner, and she works for the Hukuma. She's working for Supreme Council of Planning. Do you know what that is? Supreme Council of Planning, what do you call it? Taraf? Supreme Council, where they were. So she's working there, she's a planner. And my son was also at Sultan School for 10 years. Then he went to Switzerland, where I went. But you know, when he did his IB, International Baccalaureate, Taraf International Baccalaureate, it's like Thanawi Amma. When he did that in Switzerland, his first language was Arabic, his second language was English. So, alhamdulillah, he's okay. So when you meet them next, I will not speak, you will speak with them in Arabic. So I'm sorry, thank you very much for being here. I wish you all the best. Don't hesitate to come and see me. Remind me that we met. I'm sorry I've not been able to say hello to all of you, but I will go around and shake your hands now. Thank you. Thank you. Do I shake hands? Is that right? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. What do you say?